Welcome to episode 10 of Truth and Consequences with Doug Poppa for September 1st, 2020. This is an update on a story I've been covering for over a year and a half on Las Vegas Justice Court Judge Melanie Andress-Tobiasson. On September 1st, 2020, the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline filed the following document with the Supreme Court of Nevada. In the Supreme Court of the State of Nevada, Melanie Andress-Tobiasson, petitioner, versus Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline, respondent. Notice: the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline, by and through its counsel of record, Thomas C. Bradley, Esquire, hereby provides notice to this court that formal statement of charges were filed against respondent, Melanie Andress-Tobiasson, this first day of September 2020. According to Exhibit 1 in the document, is as follows. Before the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline, formal statement of charges. Comes now Thomas C. Bradley, prosecuting officer for the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline, established under Article 6, Section 21 of the Nevada Constitution, who, in the name of and by the authority of the Commission, as found in NRS 1.425 to 1.4695, files this formal statement of charges and informs Judge Melanie Andress-Tobiasson, Justice of the Peace, Las Vegas Justice Court, County of Clark, State of Nevada, that the following events occurred and acts were committed by Judge Tobiasson and warrant disciplinary action by the Commission under the revised Nevada Code of Judicial Conduct. Factual allegations. 1. In the early summer of 2015, Judge Tobiasson's 16-year-old daughter began to frequent a Las Vegas business establishment named Top Notch. Top Notch appeared on the outside to be a hip-hop clothing store, but in Judge Tobiasson's opinion was in fact an unlicensed club which had, on a regular basis, young high school girls hanging out in the club and dancing at times on stripper poles. After learning about the club, Judge Tobiasson staked out the establishment, where she recorded license plate numbers and vehicle makes and models of patrons. Judge Tobiasson even trailed some of the patrons home to determine where they lived. Soon thereafter, Tobiasson also reached the conclusion that Shane Valentine was a pimp running an underage prostitution ring out of Top Notch. 2. In or about July of 2015, Judge Tobiasson began to contact a number of Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department vice detectives and asked them to investigate Top Notch. At times, when Metro detectives would visit her chambers to request that she authorize search warrants unrelated to Top Notch, Tobiasson would tell them that Top Notch was an unlicensed club which was running an underage prostitution ring and that they should immediately investigate the illegal activities occurring at Top Notch. 3. During the late summer of 2015, Judge Tobiasson's teenage daughter began to work at Top Notch, and Tobiasson became gravely concerned that her daughter may become involved in illegal activities, including underage drinking, use of drugs, and prostitution. Despite Tobiasson's concerns, Judge Tobiasson continued to permit her daughter to work at and/or frequent Top Notch. Respondent continued to contact Metro officers and told them to investigate Top Notch and Shane Valentine. Just for the record, I'm going to eliminate respondent and put in Judge Tobiasson because she's the respondent for clarity. Number 4. In September 2015, a criminal complaint was issued by the Las Vegas District Attorney charging Valentine with domestic battery in State v. Shane Valentine, case number 15M22841X. On October 15, 2015, respondent provided over Valentine's arraignment. Valentine failed to appear at his arraignment, so Tobiasson issued a bench warrant for his arrest. 5. In December 2015, Judge Tobiasson's daughter told Tobiasson that she had visited Shane Valentine's house to obtain a fake ID and that Valentine attempted to persuade her to become a prostitute in his prostitution ring. Respondent then contacted Metro and provided them with Valentine's name and address. Respondent told Metro that they needed to investigate not only Top Notch, but also Valentine because she determined he was an ex-felon who worked as a pimp and was in possession of guns and illegal drugs. 6. In May 2016, Valentine was arrested for domestic battery and on June 1, 2016, appeared at a subsequent arraignment on the same charges before Judge Tobiasson. The state and Valentine's lawyer had reached a plea agreement and requested that Valentine be permitted to plead guilty. They also requested that respondent, Judge Tobiasson, impose a sentence at that hearing in accordance with their plea agreement. Judge Tobiasson admits in the commission investigation interview that prior to the hearing, she recognized Valentine's identity and was aware that she may have a conflict. Judge Tobiasson claims that she did not want to disqualify herself because she did not want Valentine to realize that she was the mother of a teenage girl who frequented Top Notch. Respondent failed to immediately disqualify herself, and instead she accepted his plea of guilty and sentenced him in accordance with the plea agreement. 7. Following the June 1, 2016 hearing, respondent claimed that Valentine attempted several times to contact her daughter. Tobiasson claimed in a publicized media interview that in approximately July of 2016, she contacted Valentine's lawyer and told him to tell Valentine that if he called her daughter again, she would quote, unquote, take care of it herself, and that on one occasion, she, quote, went to Shane Valentine's house and kicked in the door, unquote. 8. On September 25, 2016, a Metro detective telephoned Judge Tobiasson to request the issuance of a telephonic search warrant to search the premises of Top Notch following a deadly shooting which occurred outside the establishment. Despite the fact that Judge Tobiasson had been personally investigating, surveilling, and providing information to Metro regarding Top Notch, Judge Tobiasson failed to recuse herself, evaluated the merits of the request, and then granted the issuance of the warrant. 9. On approximately October 26, 2016, Sidney Land and Nehemiah Kaufman were murdered in Las Vegas. Judge Tobiasson also claimed in a publicized media interview that she then began to personally investigate the case, in part because she believed that Valentine had committed the murders. Specifically, in May of 2017, she contacted Connie Land, the mother of Sidney Land, one of the murder victims, and subsequently convinced her to transmit all of the text message that, number 1, Ms. Land had exchanged with her daughter prior to her death, and 2, all the text messages Ms. Land exchanged with the police detectives who were investigating her daughter's murder. 10. Respondent utilized quote-unquote burner telephones to secretly communicate with Ms. Land and others. A quote-unquote burner phone is a cheap disposable prepaid mobile phone which may be used to avoid being tracked by authorities. Judge Tobiasson adopted quote-unquote master of puppets as her burner cell phone identification. On October 14, 2017, Judge Tobiasson told Ms. Land in a text message by cell phone that the Metro officers who were investigating the murder of Ms. Land's daughter were quote-unquote corrupt assholes. 11. Respondent also created a false telephone account to send inappropriate text messages to a woman she believed was involved in the Land murder. Respondent also contacted Metro officers to obtain confidential information in the ongoing murder investigation. Judge Tobiasson committed additional acts that demonstrated her personal involvement in the double murder investigation. 12. Once Metro learned of Judge Tobiasson's improper personal involvement in an ongoing murder investigation, Metro had opened an investigation to determine whether Judge Tobiasson had violated any criminal statutes. As part of its investigation of Judge Tobiasson's improper conduct, Metro obtained judicial authorization in approximately July of 2017 to place a pen register on Judge Tobiasson's phones, which included her prepaid burner phone. A quote-unquote pen register is a device or process which records dialing information transmitted by telephones. The pen register recorded the date and duration of each number that Tobiasson called and also recorded the date and duration of each phone number of the persons who called her phone. Metro then determined the identity of those persons who communicated with Judge Tobiasson. 13. Metro determined that Judge Tobiasson and Anthony Danna, D-A-N-N-A, communicated or attempted to communicate with each other over 1,000 times from July 20th, 2017 to December 4th, 2017. Danna is a known and documented organized crime figure who had been charged with felony domestic violence. 14. At a hearing on July 6, 2017, Judge Tobiasson presided over a hearing involving Danna, which he dismissed the pending charges against him. On October 29, 2017, while Danna was fleeing from police in connection with another domestic battery case, he exchanged numerous texts with Judge Tobiasson. 15. Judge Tobiasson also claimed in a publicized media interview that, number one, some of the Metro Vice detectives were protecting certain pimps in exchange for bribes and sex with prostitutes. Number two, that the police forced a witness to allege that Judge Tobiasson had bribed the witness to falsely implicate Valentine. Number three, that Las Vegas Metro Sheriff Joe Lombardo was falsely accusing Judge Tobiasson of drug trafficking and threatening to file criminal charges against her to prevent and or intimidate Judge Tobiasson from disclosing corruption within the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. Number four, that Sheriff Lombardo covered up a charge of driving under the influence for Todd Fasulo, an assistant Metro sheriff. And number five, that Metro had the evidence necessary to prosecute Valentine for the Landon Kaufman murders, but refused to do so based upon improper motives. Respondent publicly claimed that, quote, prostitution racket is an untouchable business arrangement policed by Metro for the benefit of the hotel industry rather than the public, unquote. Respondent made additional public comments that were very critical of Metro officers and their alleged intentional refusal to perform their duties. Metro officers deny all of these claims. Number 16. When Tobiasson learned that a news reporter was publicizing an interview that respondent had given him regarding her involvement in the murder investigation and allegations of Metro corruption, she sent emails to the reporter stating that, number one, quote, there are parts of this that are going to ruin me. I never anticipated you would just put the entire conversation in the article. I'm mortified. I already have a discipline complaint. Can you delete the parts about me contacting his, Valentine's lawyer, please, unquote. Number two, quote, you told me you were transcribing it, not that you were going to print the entire thing. I'm toast, unquote. Number three, quote, I gave you information that was never meant to be made public. I'm ruined. Judicial Discipline will use this to remove me from the bench, unquote. And number four, quote, I'm imploring you to take down the article to lessen the damage to me, unquote. Count one. By engaging in the acts or a combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraphs 1 through 3, 5 and 9 through 11, and conducting a personal investigation of Top-Notch and Valentine, and or repeatedly telling Metro to investigate Top-Notch and Valentine, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code, including Judicial Canon 1, Rule 1.1, failing to comply with the law, including the code. Rule 1.2, failing to act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the judiciary, and avoiding impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. Rule 1.3, abusing the prestige of judicial office to advance the personal interests of the judge or others. Canon 2, Rule 2.2, failing to uphold and apply the law and perform all duties of judicial office fairly and impartially. Rule 2.4, permitting family interest and regulations to influence the judge's conduct and judgment. And Canon 3, Rule 3.1, participating in activities that would appear to a reasonable person to undermine the judge's independence, integrity, and impartiality. Count 2, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraphs 4, 5, and 6, and failing to timely disqualify herself from the State versus Shane Valentine case, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code, including Judicial Canon 1, Rule 1.1, failing to comply with the law, including the code. Rule 1.2, failing to act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the judiciary, and avoiding impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. And then it goes on to the same rules that I already read in the previous paragraph. Count 3, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraphs 1, 2, and 8, and failing to disqualify herself from ruling upon whether to grant a telephonic search warrant for the premises of Top Notch, respondent Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code, including the judicial canons, and then it goes on to say the rest of the canons that I already talked about in the previous documents. You'll see this entire document on the screenshots in this podcast. Count 4, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above and more specifically in paragraph 7, and publicly stating that she telephoned Valentine's lawyer to transmit a threat to Valentine, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code, including the judicial canons that I already stated in the other paragraphs. Count 5, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraph 7, and publicly stating that she had kicked in the door to Valentine's house, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code, including all the canons and the rules that I just talked about in the other paragraphs. Count 6, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraphs 9 through 12, and improperly becoming personally involved in an ongoing double murder investigation, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly, again, violated the code. Count 7, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraphs 12 through 14, and associating with Dana, that's D-A-N-N-A, the last name of the organized crime figure, a known criminal figure, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly, again, violated the codes and the rules that I already talked about in the other paragraphs. Count 8, by engaging in the acts or combination of the acts described above, and more specifically in paragraph 15, and repeatedly making public statements that Metro and some of its officers were corrupt and refused to perform their legal duties, Judge Tobiasson knowingly or unknowingly violated the code. Based on the information above, the Commission shall hold a public hearing on the merits of these facts and counts 1 through 8 pursuant to NRS 1.4673, and if the violations as alleged are found to be true, the Commission shall impose whatever sanctions and/or discipline it deems appropriate pursuant to NRS 1.4677 and other Nevada statutes governing the Commission, dated this 31st day of August, 2020, Thomas C. Bradley, Esquire, Prosecuting Officer for the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline.